Welcome back to Havana Media. My name is Boniface Owino, and as usual, I'm going to be your host for today. Now, I want to ask this question. It's going to be a very quick one. Let me just ask this. How did, there are a lot of questions that people are asking at this moment, and if things are not very clear, then we are going to mess up. Like, people want to know the truth. For instance, yesterday, the current CS for transport, that is Honorable Chirchir, was asked a very simple question with the sum, that how did Adani come to know that Kenyans needed a new airport? That is the question. How did Adani, based in India, come to know that Kenyans wanted a new airport? A very simple question. And then he's starting by answering by narrating the story of I don't know, the schools, the new dormitory, something like that. I want us to listen to the way this guy answered this question.
How did Adani know that Kenya was looking for a new airport?
What happens is in a privately initiated proposal,
Yep.
Investors would look for opportunities. Like I do understand in this country, we could do better in investing in housing hostels for our students. Mm-hmm. And I could originate a privately initiated proposal to the Ministry of Education that if you provide land, I would be able to develop hostels
yep.
at this kind of terms. Mm-hmm. That will be taken through the due process, evaluated to the extent that government fiscal headroom yep. can accommodate. We can say, no, we have capacity to build. Mm-hmm. If the government doesn't have capacity, we can say, yes, we can look at the process and take it through the due process in line with the law.
That is within the country?
Within the country.
Adani origin is India. How did they learn about it in Nairobi?
There are very many proposals. I've just come from energy, and you may be aware that most of the power generation programs developing and feeding into the grid are PPP programs. Mm-hmm. I think because PPP Act number 14 of 2021 is fairly a new act, I basically think that we have not socialized much mm-hmm. or spent time to understand this procurement process, okay. which is really established.
So the question I'm asking, Waziri, look, we had a cabinet dispatch, I think it was on 11th of June,
yeah.
okaying some two documents from the Kenya Airports Authority, yeah. that is on the master plan and the policy of the KAA. Adani presented their PIP, privately initiated proposal, in March 2024. How did they learn about it before even cabinet approved such a thing?
I think it's not a secret that we've been seeking to build an airport in Kenya for a long time. Mm-hmm. Yes, we've been trying to do it under the government fiscal headroom.
Yep.
But for a $2 billion investment and the kind of debt that the government is sitting on government balance sheet today, mm-hmm. we are unable to accommodate those kind of projects.
Okay.
So we've done a feasibility study. We've sought to build an airport on government investment. Unfortunately, your clip did really bring out the fact that, and we are all aware that we tried to do a greenfield as early as 2012, 2013.
Right.
And unfortunately, we've not had an airport today.
You were asked a very simple question, that how did Adani come to know that Kenya wanted a new airport? And then the answer that you're giving is different. On the other hand, today again, this guy, it's like this guy has been, he thought that maybe being a CS of transport is very easy. But one thing he needed to understand was that the former CS of transport, that Kipchumba Murkomen, left that position. Well, it was very messy. Like, for instance, we are getting to understand right now that Kipchumba Murkomen, together with the Kimani Chungwa, were paid a lot of money. Something like, I don't know whether it's 20 billion or 2 billion Kenya shillings by Adani. So that one was paid in advance. So they have been enjoying this money, thinking that maybe Adani will not come to inquire a job, maybe to cater for the money that they were paid. So you're seeing these things. So today, this guy was asked, Chirchir was asked, he was in a panel at the Senate, and it was being the Senate committee, and he was asked by Olekina that how did Adani come to get the whole picture of how JKIA looks like, our airport looks like, and all that. How did they get access That was the question. How did Adani get access to Kenya, to the Kenyan, to the airport's photos and all that, the satellites, everything, all the documents that what the Kenyans wanted to be made, to maybe to be repaired in JKIA. And this thing was also talked about yesterday by Sifuna. Sifuna said yesterday very well that this issue of Adani is something that had been planned within Kenya. It is not something that was planned from outside. It is something that has been planned in Kenya. So Adani is just coming in to cover up for something that is being done by someone in Kenya. I want us to listen to these questions that were being asked by Olekina. I know it's going to be long, but I just want you to listen to it up to the end. But and then at the end of the video, please don't forget to click the subscribe button. You can also tell me what you think at the comment section. And just a reminder, if you're for the first time, please don't forget to click the subscribe button. You can also like, share, and drop me a comment and tell me what to think and where you're watching us from. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Boniface Owino. Watch this.
The first basic and straightforward question is, why Adani? Why not the Kenyan government? Bonasias, in your documents that you've submitted, you've indicated that JKIA is worth 1.1 trillion shillings. And as it appears, even based on your submissions, we are willing to put an investment which is worth 1.1 trillion shillings to risk for 230 billion Kenya shillings. In your submission, Bonasias, someone would conclude that the deal is done because you've indicated clearly that there is a team currently in India carrying out due diligence. In your submissions, you've also indicated very clearly that you're negotiating for a CEO to be a Kenyan. But you contradict yourself in your submissions when you are asked to provide a profile and the shareholders of Adani, and you say that we've only carried out a desktop due diligence. Who then would you be negotiating with if, for once, you have sent a team to India, but in your response you say you do not provide this committee with information on who the shareholders are? I would expect that for such a magnanimous and a magnitude, project, even before coming here, you would have carried out severe due diligence, extensive due diligence, to be able to send a team to India. One of the things that also baffles me is that based on the proposal submitted by Adani, it appears that they had insider information. Because the law says that, yes, which I think this is also one of our biggest handicap, it says that a private investor there can be able to submit a proposal. But when you look at the documents that you've submitted, and I've perused them within the 10 minutes that we had, the information submitted by Adani really leaves a lot to be desired on the ethical or ethics of our people, because it shows detailed photographs of the airport. It talks about the challenges of our airport. One which was very, very concerning to me, if I can remember it, it demonstrates photography, satellite images. It talks about the runway, the capacity of the runway. If indeed this was not an insider dealing, which is brought about or orchestrated by a cabal in this country, how would Adani, a conglomerate based in India, get specific details on how or what ails our infrastructure? That is issue number one, Bonasias. Number two, because I want to exhaust a series of my questions before we allow anyone else to answer. And Mr. Chairman, I would hope that my questions will be answered. I've noted that the head of terms contract has been submitted by Adani. They are the ones, I think they are the ones who have drafted it.
Yes.
Honestly, Bwana CS, we have a big asset here. If Adani was really the company that it is, would we allow them to submit and say that part of the model of financing this deal will be, one, debt. They will go out there and borrow money to be able to come and build this infrastructure. Number two, they will also use equity that exists.
Our equity.
Our own equity, our own sweat and blood for over centuries. Number three, internal accruals. In fact, internal accruals is really the bare minimum. Debt capital market structure. So essentially, Adani does not have this money. Adani, in my conclusion, is a cabal which is led by some people who are not named in this country, because you could not even give us a shareholding, and a group of people who are out there. And if you just take a few minutes, Bwana CS, because due diligence is very important, and ask internet who is Adani, the first thing that they will come out is you'll be told Adani is a corrupt, fraudulent multinational corporation that has faced serious fraud allegations, including even environmental degradation in how their practices. So why on earth would we subject Kenyans to such mediocrity when it comes to the issue of investments in our property? Why did you not, if it is indeed, and I think I've opined this before, I know Kenya needs a second airport. Yes, we do. But for a PPP, why not give them land 50 kilometers away? They're already asking you to give them 30 lands to develop their commercial properties and everything. Why don't you give them free land 30 kilometers away? Tell them you have the 260 billion, you demonstrate by building afresh here.
Even in Isiolo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stop there. And I hope that you can answer before any other senator asks questions.
Yeah,
Please.
thank you. I think we are going to go that way, whereby you exhaust your questions and we give you not so many minutes, about 3 or 4. You ask your questions, then the CS will answer those questions. Bwana CS.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, why Adani? Like we did indicate, with PPP Act, it basically seeks to help economy on mega projects where the government may not be able to develop. Like, because Senator Chute is sitting here, if we were to take the grid to the northern part of Kenya today, and because the government don't have money to build the network in the next 1, 2, 3 years, what we could do is to interest private capital through PPP Act, through PPP investment, to build the network on a return on equity, reasonable return on equity, and therefore be able to open that northern part of Kenya. Alternatively, we wait for 10, 15, 20 years to open that part of the country. So it's a way of procuring private investors, interesting private investors